Krav the Unredeemed versus Regna the Redeemer, first ever multiplayer game on this channel, and we're going to keep that because I'm hoping that our opponents aren't going to get off to a fast start, and the one who gets off to the fastest start is usually the first one to be taken down. So I haven't actually ever played... Oh, actually, tell a lie, I've played 1 or 2 multiplayer Commander games testing this deck out before. But I'm not very well versed in multiplayer Commander, especially not online. So we'll just have to see how this goes. Our opponents are deciding whether or not to mulligan. Krav the Unredeemed, 5 mana for a 3/3 demon. Black, sacrifice X creatures. Target player draws X cards and gains X life. Put X +1/+1 counters on Krav the Redeemed. Or Krav the Unredeemed, I should say. Regna the Redeemer is 6 mana, mono white, flying angel, a 4/4. At the beginning of each end step, if your team gained life this turn, create 2 warrior tokens. Looks like we're just going to have to go for a plains and then go for the bounce land next turn. Now I do want to be transparent as ever on this channel and note that this deck hasn't been built by myself. I actually took note of this deck quite a few weeks ago, maybe even a month or 2 ago at this point. And are they playing a bounce land on turn 1? Yeah, they're playing a bounce land on turn 1. I hope they don't shame scoop to that, because they're going to be forced to bounce that land back. They've effectively missed a land drop there. Might have a newer player on our hands here. Yeah, this deck isn't mine. It is being built by someone else, and I can't remember the name. Berkey, maybe? A friend of mine in Australia, anyway. And they reached out and said that they'd like me to play some multiplayer Commander and suggested this deck that they had built. And so I have built the deck myself online. This is their deck. I can't remember if I've made any adjustments to it or not, but if I have, I'm going to upload both a link to their deck list in the description and then a link to my version of the deck in the description as well, going to our respective tapped out pages. They're probably identical. If I have changed any cards in the deck, then it is literally just 1 or 2, because the deck list looks really good. Shambling Vents, yeah, I think we're going to have to discard down to size, aren't we? Yeah, we can get down Dawn of Hope next turn, so let's just go for the tap land there. And now that I have informed you all that this is not my deck, we can go over the commanders. Slimefoot the Stowaway has played a forest, by the way, so it looks like they either drew into one or they had one from the beginning and misplayed a land. Whenever a sapling you control dies, it deals 1 damage to each opponent and you gain a life. 4 generic mana creates a sapling creature token. That is a 2/3 for 3 mana in Golgari. Another Golgari commander, Hapatra Vizier of Poisons, 2 mana for a 2/2. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, put a minus counter on a creature. And whenever you put 1 or more minus counters on a creature, create a 1/1 green snake creature token with Death Touch. Now, seeing as how our opponent is ramping as well, although this is indestructible, so I'm not sure I want to get down the Basalt Monolith just yet. Let's go for the Dawn of Hope, and then we have 7 cards in hand, so we can get down Orzhov Basilica, and we'll bounce back the plains to our hand, and that will leave us with a full grip, and we don't look too threatening to our opponents at this point. The last commander, Jori En, Ruin Diver, and is it 3 mana commander, 2/3. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, draw a card. Hapatra has just got down a Phyrexian Arena, and now looks like the Jori En opponent is going for Dream Cache. Draw 3 cards, then put 2 cards from your hand on top of your library or both on the bottom. I'm not sure which our opponent did there. They chose to put them on the bottom. Now we can go in for the plains because our opponents know that we have that. And I think we're fairly safe going for the Basalt Monolith now. I hope. And we now have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We'll have 9 mana next turn if our mana rocks survive. Yeah, it might be worth getting down Zulaport Cutthroat and then Regna, because that will gain us some life when Regna enters, and then we'll get some warrior tokens from that. The Slimefoot, the Stowaway opponent, gets one of their sack outlets into play in Vizier. Down comes Golgari's Signet for Hapatra. Ooh, and Rhystic Study comes down, so if there is any enchantment or artifact removal to come down, I would think it would go after the Rhystic Study opponent. Alright, get ourselves a Scrubland, so I think we'll go for the play that we mentioned before. And how much mana do we need for Regna? That is 6 mana. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so we can pay once for the Rhystic Study. But we will be tapped out when Regna comes down, so that is 1 card draw for our opponent. Rhystic Study has already replaced itself. Just a bit of ramp for the Slimefoot opponent. And I'm not sure if people are actually paying for this Rhystic Study or not. I should keep an eye on the number of cards that Jori En has. 9 cards so far. And people should be paying for the Rhystic Study trigger if they can. Nope, that wasn't paid for, so getting a lot of value out of Rhystic Study in this game. Okay, out comes Hapatra with 3, 4, 5 mana floating. And are they going to pay the Rhystic Study trick? No, again, letting our opponent draw more cards. Not happy about this Hapatra. This Hapatra player letting so many cards be drawn. Parallel Lives comes down for the Hapatra opponent, so they're just trying to set themselves up for getting lots of snake tokens by the looks of it. Unfortunately, Hapatra can easily deal with our Zulaport Cutthroat, and I imagine that they'll want to get rid of Zulaport Cutthroat before they start pulling their shenanigans. Hapatra typically wants to put -1/-1 counters on lots and lots of creatures and replace them all with snakes and insects and all sorts of tokens. And Jori En just ramping like crazy, so I'm not sure what their game plan is. And we get into another aristocrat effect in Falconwrath Noble. Do we want to get down Endrick Sar or not? How much does this commander cost? That is 5 mana. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 mana we have. Yeah, I don't think I mind just holding back for now and holding up Teferi's protection. I'm not too happy about what the Izzet player's doing, so I am going to swing in at them. Can easily fly over with our commander. And then we can hold up Polluted Delta to go for a tapped shock. We can also hold up Dawn of Hope. If we gain any life, we can pay 2 and draw a card. And we can also create a token off of this as well for 4 mana. That can chump Hapatra if that comes in, and it'll also gain us some life and get us some warrior tokens from our commander. And failing all of that, we can just put 3 mana into Basalt Monolith to untap it. Alright, we'll see if Slimefoot pays for the Rhystic Study trigger, currently on 7 cards, Jori En. And again, not paying for it. This is amateur hour. It's okay to give the Rhystic Study player a card or two, but you really need to be putting mana into paying for the Rhystic Study trigger. This is whenever an opponent casts a spell, you may draw a card unless that player pays an extra generic mana, feeding the blue-red player lots of cards. That's not something you want to be doing. Grafted Exoskeleton for the Slimefoot opponent, so it looks like they are on an infect plan of some kind, and Slimefoot is out in play now. Blowfly Infestation for Hapatra, and the Izzet player is going to draw yet another card from Rhystic Study, I imagine. Yep, certainly are. Back up to 10. I've lost track of how many cards they've drawn off Rhystic Study now. Blowfly Infestation is an enchantment. Whenever a creature dies, if it had a -1/-1 counter on it, put a -1/-1 counter on a target creature. Okay, and for some reason the Slimefoot opponent has just decided to scoop it up. Has not said a word to us. Yeah, no idea why they've done that. And Hapatra seems to be just passing the turn, so why they didn't... I mean, they might have something at instant speed, which costs them... Yeah, that costs 5 mana. But why they didn't pay for the Rhystic Study trigger, I don't know. Maybe they do need that 5 mana at instant speed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 mana, I think, available to them. And even more now in Warm Power Stone. Yeah, I'd really love to get an Austere Command or a Merciless Eviction at this point. Kefnet the Mindful coming down. That is Flying Indestructible, 5/5 for 3 mana. Can't attack or block unless you have 7 or more cards in hand. 4 mana draws a card, and then you can bounce a land back to its owner's hand. That is a land you control. Goes particularly well in in Tatyova, I think. Now if our opponent just wants to pass at that, that's fine with me. They do have 3 mana open. This costs 2 to activate, but they might have counter magic in hand. They do have a full grip of 8 currently. We'll go in for untapping Basalt Monolith, and then we'll crack the Polluted Delta, and I think we're okay to just get a swamp here, just in case an opponent gets down Blood Moon. I wouldn't have thought anyone would, but also going to risk tapping out here to get ourselves a Dawn of Hope soldier token with lifelink. We're not holding up Teferi's Protection while this is all in order. The Izzet opponent has to discard down to hand size now. And they discard a Flux. Yeah, why don't we just get down Krav the Redeemer. Oh, I keep saying Krav the Redeemer, Krav the Unredeemed. And then I, unlike my friends over here, will pay for the Rhystic Study trigger, as you should. And now that Krav has come down, the Hapatra opponent seems to be doing something or other. That is Dictate of Erebos. That is the 5 mana they needed. Yeah, I don't think we want to react to that. We have Dawn of Hope held up, as well as Teferi's Protection. And we could get a Krav effect on the go as well. That is black, sack X creatures. Target player draws X cards and gains X life. Put X plus counters on Krav. Yeah, really want some enchantment and artifact removal at this point. Now I'd like to swing into the Izzet opponent here, but Kefnet can attack and block because our opponent has 8 cards in hand. So I'm just going to poke Hapatra here for 4 damage in the air. And we'll pass like that. Like I say, we're holding up Dawn of Hope, a soldier token with lifelink, Teferi's Protection. We could animate the Shambling Vent if we need to, but I don't think we're going to bother with that. We also have Krav the Redeemed that we can activate as well. I'm just waiting for Hapatra to get down something like a Black Sun Zenith. Okay, Carnifex Demon. They can activate if they want to. And let me guess, they're not going to pay for Rhystic Study. No, up to 9 cards is Jori En. They can only activate Carnifex once, as the board stands currently. I don't know if they've made a land drop or not. Carnifex Demon enters with 2 -1 counters on it, which means it triggers Hapatra. And then black, and remove a counter, puts a -1/-1 counter on each other creature. We can protect ourselves from that with Teferi's Protection. And if they want to take out our opponent's Palladium Mirror, that's fine with me. Alright, going for the activation on Carnifex Demon. See if the Izzet player has anything to say about that. Okay, Chaos Warping the Blowfly Infestation. I'm just going to let that resolve first before we get down to Teferi's Protection. I want as much stuff to go on as possible. Oh, they get into a swamp. That's annoying. Oh, well, actually, if they... Yeah, that is actually really annoying because... Yeah, shouldn't have let that resolve. The problem we're at now is that when we Teferi's Protection, they can just activate Carnifex Demon again. Well, we might as well sacrifice in that case. That will gain us a life, and each of our opponents will lose a life. It'll put a counter on Krav. And I'm just wondering at this point, is it worth using Teferi's Protection at this point? Yeah, I'm just going to kill the Zulaport Cutthroat here. We could have done that with the first activation, but I've only really just decided to do it now. And then we actually don't have anything to do with the rest of the mana, so we might as well draw a card from the Dawn of Hope. We get into Taser, Orzhov Scion, and then Carnifex Demon finally resolves. Yeah, and that puts 2 Dictate of Erebos triggers on the stack. I totally forgot about that. Should have gone for Teferi's Protection then, I think. Yeah, we'll just get rid of Krav here. We're going to have to get rid of both of our commanders, unfortunately. We do have Toxic Deluge, thankfully, but we'd be in a much better position had I have gone for Teferi's Protection there, like the plan was originally. I told you, I'm just getting used to multiplayer games, and there's your proof right there. And then our opponent is definitely going to pay for the Rhystic Study trigger here. Nope, they give our opponent their 9th card. Oh, and then Skull Clamp. Yeah, they can draw as many cards as they want at this point. Definitely wanting to get into that Austere command. Our opponent has now played a Zulaport Cutthroat, still not paying for the Rhystic Study. They're up to 10 cards now, bearing in mind they have Ashnod's Altar. So they've got all the mana they could ever want, thanks to all these snakes and being able to sacrifice them at will for mana. They could pay for the Rhystic triggers if they wanted to. Alright, eventually deciding to pass over to the end step. They just basically got a load of Skull Clamp and Ashnod's Altar triggers off there. Drained us a little bit in the process thanks to their own Zulaport Cutthroat. And now we're having to discard down to hand size. Gotten rid of a Black Market, Oran Reef, the Vast Wood, a Forest, a Dusk Urchins, and a Tainted Wood from the hand. And obviously have a full grip. The Izzet player is up to 10 cards thanks to our opponent not paying for Rhystic Study. Starting things off with a Compulsive Research, Jori En, into Chasm Skulker, which I assume they just drew into, and then sacrificing a snake, I assume. Yeah, they're down to 4 snakes, so they've sacrificed a snake in response with Ashnod's Altar. They were trying to get a Windfall off there to get lots of plus counters onto the Chasm Skulker, and Hapatra clearly doesn't like the idea of that. I actually quite liked our hand there. We had Toxic Deluge, that was the plan. They discarded a Tharda Adele, another Wheel, Iron Eyes, a Counterflux, so they did have a counter in hand. Drake Haven, Copy Enchantment, Seagate Oracle, Thirst for Knowledge. Windfall is what they cast. Mountain, Jace's Archivist, and there's a Merciless Eviction. Now then, I think we need to get rid of Rhystic Study, Dictate. Phyrexian Arena, yeah, I'd really like to get rid of enchantments and artifacts here, but I'm leaning towards enchantments first. Alright, so in that case, we're going to go for Merciless Eviction on enchantments. And then next turn, I can get rid of Skull Clamp or Ashnod's Altar with the Anguished Unmaking, but I can't deal with Hapatra on my own. My opponent does need to help me with that. And they're just going to sack everything in response in order to drain us. And we are going to pay for Rhystic Study, because that's what you do. Our opponent has clearly drawn back into the Blowfly Infestation, so that is really bad news with a Carnifex in play. And Hapatra has free reign as well, so Hapatra can swing straight into either of us, put a minus counter back onto Carnifex, and yeah, our opponent can just go crazy with Carnifex triggers, which is exactly what they're going to do here, I think. They are aiming everything at the Izzet player. Lots and lots of triggers going on the stack now. This looks like... Yep, Carnifex has been activated. So that is Zulaport Cutthroat sacrificed. But it does mean that our opponent is going to get a lot of insect and snake tokens now. And then the best part is that once all these tokens come into play, Carnifex can be activated again. I'm glad we got rid of the parallel lives now. Just trying to figure out how Carnifex has died after all those triggers. Oh, and that's a shame. Something's happened there. I don't know why Carnifex has died, but our opponent has just decided to quit after leaving us waiting for that long. Yeah, that's a shame. Our opponent just shame scooping there. Alright, managed to eject him. Shame our opponent decided to scoop there. I mean, I just used the merciless eviction for no reason whatsoever there. It basically got rid of the Rhystic Study, which we were playing around anyway. It was our two opponents that gave our Izzet player over here all the card draw. But they are down to 6 life, and we are at 27. So hopefully we can do something about that. Perhaps with a blind obedience we can hopefully manage to get them out of the game here. Oh, austere command we were close to, so I doubt our opponent is going to play that. It's a shame that they've got that off us. Yeah, we actually probably would have played that. Let's get out our blind obedience. And then I think it's okay to go for Tymna the Weaver, and we will pay the extort cost on that and try and get rid of our opponent. That's hopefully a little bit of card draw for next turn, and we'll hold up that 3 mana for either Anguished Unmaking or untapping the Basalt Monolith. The more mana we've got next turn, the more we can do next turn. Our opponent's down to 4 cards in hand. Champion of Wits coming down, and that will draw our opponent some cards. And getting off the Chaos Wand on us again. And they get Crush Contraband, so that's no doubt going after Blind Obedience. Yeah, Chaos Wand is good. If none of you know what this card is, it is a really good card. 4 and tap. Target opponent exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile an instant or sorcery. You may cast it without paying its mana cost. And they are going for Crush Contraband. Yeah, and Crush Contraband gets Basalt Monolith and Blind Obedience. I'm thinking of getting rid of that Chaos Wand because they've gotten 2 good cards off us so far in Crush Contraband and Austere Command. Oh, Mirage Mirror. Yeah, I'm actually glad that I've saved the Anguished Unmaking now because Mirage Mirror is a pretty scary card. 2 mana, it becomes a copy of a target artifact, creature, enchantment or land until the end of the turn. And I've seen some busted things occur with this card. So let's get rid of the Mirage Mirror from our opponent with Anguished Unmaking. 2 cards left in our opponent's hand, and they may well have some kind of counter magic for us. 8 mana for Regna, and we have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 mana if we play a land untapped. Let's just swing in first with Tymna, and then we're going to pay a life because one of our opponent has been dealt damage, and all we do is get into... Yeah, I think we're best just getting down our Regna here. Doesn't look like any counter magic is in our opponent's hand. That came down pretty quickly. We'll just go for Temple of Silence and see if we can fix our draw for next turn. Ancient Tomb we definitely don't want to get into. So our opponent needs to deal with our commander here. We have gained life this turn, so we're going to get some warriors. And we'll be able to go wide on our opponent if they don't do anything this turn. 3 cards in hand, and all the mana they could ever want. It looks like they're fishing for answers. They go loot him with Desolate Lighthouse. And now they're definitely playing something. They discarded the Planeswalker's Mischief. And then they grab an Utter End from us. That probably goes after Regna. Oh, and then Dualcaster Mage on their own spell, so... They not only get another blocker in the way, but they also get another Utter End, which goes after Tymna. So with only 2 cards in hand, thanks to that Chaos one, they get a lot going. And then an Archmage's Ascension comes out. At the beginning of each end step, if you drew 2 or more cards this turn, put a quest counter on it. When it has 6 or more quest counters on it, you may instead search your library for a card and put it into your hand. And we just get into another land, which is really bad for us. Just going to get down our Hamlet's Archive here. And then is there anything that we want to grab from our graveyard, do we think? Yeah, I'm going to go for Whip of Erebos here and hope that it sticks around. Then we can go in at our opponent with both of these. That will kill the champion, but it'll kill both of our tokens as well. We'll gain 4 life from this. Alright, for some reason they are double blocking on one token. Fair enough. I think I'm actually not going to kill the champion, because that means they'll be able to recast it next turn and draw more cards. And I don't really like the idea of that. Oh, and they get into... yeah, that Chaos Wand is doing a hell of a lot for our opponent. Demonic Tutor now. They can go and get whatever they want. Might be able to refill their hand here. Our opponent plays Induced Amnesia. When it enters the battlefield, target player exiles all cards from their hand face down and draws that many. And then when this thing dies, return the exiled cards. And drawing a couple more cards by sacrificing the Is-It Locket. We could have won last turn had I have gone for Whip of Erebos. I'm still in 1 versus 1 mode and trying to get plays out quickly, and I've made quite a few mistakes this game, I think, so, or at least a couple of decent mistakes that I can think of. We could have gone for Whip of Erebos last turn and got back the Falconwrath Noble, and I think that would have been lethal last turn. We would have had 2 damage in the air, and then either our tokens get through or they die and ping our opponent to death. So that's the play that we should have gone for last turn, but our opponent is now tapped out with 1 card in hand. So I think we have the win on them now. There's an Elspeth Sons champion. Let's go for that Whip of Erebos onto the Falconwrath Noble, the play that I should have done last turn. And then let's get in at our opponent for 2 points of damage in the air and 1 point of damage on the ground. Yeah, and our opponent's a little bit upset about that, but that's the way it goes. Yeah, I've watched enough of PJ's games on Commander Replay to know that you don't seem to be able to get 4 players together. Yeah, we had the Slimefoot player scoop out of nowhere, and we have no idea why. And then the Hapatra opponent seemed to scoop because something went wrong with the card. I don't know if Carnifex died because of an issue or a mistake that they made, or if it was an issue on Magic Online and it was a problem with the actual client. I've no idea. I'll have to watch back the video and see if I can make heads or tails of that. But Hapatra, even though Hapatra scooped early, they did actually seem to help us in the late game there by putting the Is-It player down to a low life total, so managed to squeak out a victory even though I made a few mistakes there. I'm just getting used to multiplayer and just kind of throwing this out there to see if anyone actually cares enough to watch it. If I get more views on this than I tend to on my single player videos, then I'll definitely start concentrating more on multiplayer, but I think I do prefer 1 versus 1 personally, but it's all down to you. If you prefer multiplayer, if you prefer single player, you must be sure to let me know. I'm tribalkai on the EDH channel. Thank you for watching.